Hello, you. I'm Brittany Pacheco,
I'm Marcy Gonzalez.
I'm Franklin Cooper.
and we are the Watchers in the Basement. Welcome back to the Watchers in the Basement, or welcome. If you are new, consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. We are currently on the road to 500 subscribers. Help make that goal happen. Today, ladies and gents, we will be wrapping up the final season of Netflix You. We will be discussing episodes 6 through 10. We appreciate those in today's live chat who are joining us today. Shout out to King B. Johnson, to M Moves, and to the lovely Amber of All of Amber's Wands. Thank y'all so much for being here. We are very much looking forward to hearing y'all's thoughts on these last 5 episodes. Real quick, we've done part 1 already. If you would like to get caught up on our review for part 1, episodes 1 through 5, it's a rather lengthy pod, but I think it's still a good one. So grab a snack, grab a drink, glass of wine, whatever, or whatever it is that Joel Goldberg likes to relish in. Creepy. Please check that out and then come back here. Marcy, your overall thoughts on the final episodes of You?
Satisfied. Could have been better. Joe could have had more repercussions at the end, I think, but overall, I think they ended it in a way that was satisfying to me and didn't completely piss me off, right? Like if Joe had gotten off scot-free, I would have burned the town down, but no, I'm overall good ending to this show that has had us on a ride for I don't know how many years now. 7 years.
I think, did the show begin in 2017 or did it begin in 2018, 2019? I can't remember.
2018.
I think it was 2018. Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a while. We've been with Joe for a while. So yeah, it's good to see him go.
For sure. And Marcy not trying to channel in her inner Joe Goldberg of burning the place down if if that's what it took. Frank, my friend, I know you just finished the final episode earlier today. What are your overall thoughts? I swear it's been a day. What are your overall thoughts on the final 5 episodes?
It was satisfying, fulfilling, but I wish, like Marcy said, it would have been more of a grand finale of embarrassment for Joe. I feel like for the 20 some odd victims that he's took off this planet, I feel like he should have had more of an embarrassment, more of a reckoning per se. I wish no parent wants to see their child see them in that way, but I feel like he definitely should have deserved it. And I feel like Henry should have been more of a prop of like, you live for this kid, right? So you say, but you abandon this kid every chance, every turn when you feel like you found the one. And I wish Henry was more directly involved as far as like the shaming that Joe should have felt. Him going to jail and like the little montage at the end, the monologue at the end, was fine. But for him, the show really showed Joe in his childhood and how even into the episode, like he talks about like I didn't have a chance from Jump Street based on how I was raised. It would have been kind of nice to juxtapose that with Henry seeing him for how he is, truly as a monster, how he is, maybe in court or like somewhere where he can really feel the shame from the one person that I guess in his twisted way truly loves. But I mean, I'm glad that he's in prison. I was praying throughout the whole episode that he wouldn't get shot and kind of escape justice. And I kind of wish they would have done a montage of everybody that he's killed at the end to really show like the villainy and the evilness of this man that he's done over the last 5 seasons. But I mean, I was somewhat satisfied for the most part.
Yeah, I have to agree with y'all. There were a couple of episodes in this part 2 that I really enjoyed. Really enjoyed in terms of just the overall season. I think the most enjoyable episodes were in this last part. That being said, the finale for me, I felt like fell a little short. right? We all wanted to see Joe. See, here I go saying Joel. This is not The Last of Us, Brittany. This is you. Get it straight. We all wanted to see Joe have to pay for his crimes, right? Dying would have been way too easy, and really just not fair, right? Not satisfactory. So, him having to face the music and having to deal with the idea that he was going to be alone for the rest of his life, right? I still felt like in this final episode that there was just like a lot of filler. There was a lot of fluff that maybe wasn't particularly needed. And we'll go into more depth about it when we talk about that specific episode. But overall, I think the story carried. It has its highs and lows, but I feel like there's still some holes that we're missing, and we'll get into that right now. Hello. So once again, appreciate everyone taking the time to be here today. Be sure to leave us your thoughts in the live chat, or if you're watching the replay, leave your comments in down below. That way we can check them out and reply to them later. So let's get right into it, guys. Let's talk about episode 6, entitled "The Dark Face of Love," which, as a quick reminder, is the title of Guinevere Beck's book. And we're going to learn a lot about who Bronte, well, Louise Flannery, is. This is on the heels of the killing of Clayton, who was part of this group who seemed to be catfishing Joe. And it was all caught on TikTok live, Joe having murdered Clayton and him realizing that Bronte isn't at all who she says she is. Marcy, kind of walk us through just the quick intro or the beginning of this episode with what takes place at the police station with Bronte, and starting to learn how she's connected to Joel Goldberg in the long run.
Yeah, so, after episode 5, we get that little cliffhanger, and Joe is dumbfounded. He's like, "Did you catfish me?" So we're like, okay, this is a new twist. So now they are interrogating her at the police station, and it comes out that yes, she has in fact been catfishing him. And she has a connection to Joe going back to our first season. She was a university student in one of Beck's classes where she was a graduate TA. So that's kind of her connection to Joe. She had to leave her grad program to take care of her ailing mom, and that's when she found out that Beck had been murdered, and she's in a lot of grief. She's rereading Beck's book, doing a lot of online research, as you do when you are depressed and you're caring for a family member who is terminal and you don't really have a lot going on. Like, you seek refuge again in Beck's book, in building community online. So you stumble upon a group of, I would say, internet vigilantes that are trying to figure out what keeps happening to people. It's very, very strange. They are all connected somehow to either Joe's crimes or just crimes and murder in general. So we get a nice introduction of why she has been catfishing him and who the rest of, their crew is.
And on that note of who the crew is, we are introduced to Dominique, aka Dom, Phoenix, who Dom and Phoenix connected because of the justice system screwing their families over, right? And there's really not a whole lot of information about that. But Frank, talking about the other crew member that is Clayton, were you surprised to learn that Clayton has a direct connection to Dr. Nikki from season 1, who is in jail, having been accused and tried and found guilty of murdering Guinevere Beck? Were you surprised to learn who Clayton really is? And tell us who Clayton really is.
Yeah, Clayton is the son of Mr. Stamos, season 1, who was a therapist, Guinevere's therapist, that she was banging, that Joe set up to take the rap for Beck's murder. So that's his son. Very surprised. I was very surprised and somewhat impressed by all the tie-ins from season 1. Even with Bronte's tie connection with Beck. And I guess it makes sense because season 5 is the beginning of the end for this character and Joe, and how as not tied in, but from the very beginning of when you first see his story of the torment that he has done to so many people. But no, I was very, very surprised. And even for as long as they've been trying to track Joe and connect Joe, and it makes sense when you look at how motivated he was and kind of how off the rails towards the end he was in trying to bring down Joe and like the people and like the harm that he did just by trying to bring down this man kind of shows. I thought it was low-key good acting by Clayton because it shows he's hurt from this. He still hasn't dealt with no closure. His dad's in prison for something he didn't do. And to have an inkling and a feeling that your dad didn't do this, but nobody's listening, he feels like the book's been closed on his father. And it's like everything he's doing in this season was out of desperation of trying to track this man, even to the point of like putting Bronte's safety in danger. And I think he did a good job. The actor, not Clayton, but like of portraying the desperation of what he's willing to do to like clear his father's name.
Yeah, and Clayton is played by Tom Francis, who I'm not familiar with him as an actor. I'm not familiar with his work, but I think he did a great job. And this is something I will definitely say for this particular season. While there were highs and lows in terms of episodes, I think literally every actor exhibited a clinic in one or more episodes. Like saw that, of course, Penn Badgley, he's the star. We saw that with Anna Camp playing twins. Saw that with even Madeline Brewer, who played Bronte. She will definitely have her moment, a few moments, but really a moment in the final episode. All the actors did wonderful, including Tom Francis, who again plays Clayton. Real quick, I want to just come over here to the chat, y'all. Amber says, tiny thing that bothered me is that it's clear this was all on TikTok, but you can't say murder on TikTok. It's stupid and annoying, but each time they said it, it made me go, now that's flagged. Now, Amber, I appreciate that because as you know, I'm not on TikTok because I refuse to be on any more social media than I need to be at this day and age in my life. But I didn't know this information, but that's interesting to learn. So thank you for that. I wanted to just kind of talk quickly about how like Bronte, she kind of, she bonds with these individuals, eventually moves to New York so that they can continue their stalking and research. That is, Joel, godly, I swear to God, I will never ever get this. Joe Goldberg. And they are able to infiltrate, right? That wasn't the original plan. They wanted to keep their distance without having their covers blown. But Bronte took it upon herself to break into Mooney's. She eventually makes contact. She's like, I think I can make him fall in love with me. We have to create this story. And it's like she really wanted to be connected to him. Or am I off base? Marcy, what are your thoughts about how Bronte, first and foremost, her name is Louise. Her name is Louise Flannery. We've already established that. But she assumes this persona of Bronte and creating like this background and this really sad story and throwing in Clayton into the mix to make it seem like he is the ex-boyfriend who was horrible to her and putting him in what ultimately would be harm's way because Joe is going to protect the woman that he falls for, right? So what did you think of her having taken the initiative to deviate from the group's plan to say, listen, we're moving too slow. This is what I'm going to do. And this is how it's going to go.
It kind of, I rewatched that episode today, and it kind of made me think of Mean Girls when Lindsay Lohan's character Katie was like, oh, I'm going to make them like, I'm going to be their friend and like, I'm going to take them down. But she ends up becoming their friend and becoming, a bad person just like them. So it was annoying because at first, at the beginning of episode 6, we're like, yes, Bronte, Louise, whoever you are going to help them take down Joe. And like, we love this for you. But then throughout that episode and then the next few episodes in the rest of the season, you see her start to become obsessed with Joe First as like, I'm going to take you down. I'm going to figure out like, you know, how you murdered everybody. But then it became more of like, I'm going to try to understand you. And like, maybe like that will help me take you down. And then it was like, well, I'm just going to try to understand you just because you seem misunderstood. So you see her just kind of abandoning the original plan and devolving into somebody who was, again, just going to enable Joe, which is what he has been used to. So that was what I didn't like in this part of the season, but it's completely understandable that how that happens. We see it happen every day with people who aren't murderers, right? Like they're just terrible people, and people in their life keep enabling them. So, yeah, whenever, you know, she's like, hey, I'm going to try to make him fall in love with me, and that's how we'll do it. I'm like, nope, this red flag, stop. Like, do not, this is a bad plan. So yeah, this half of this season just got me into my feels a lot about how people, especially women, can become wrapped around just kind of like some terrible, terrible people. And Beck is, you know, who pointed it out, you know, when they're having a flashback and she's reading some of her work, she's like, you've got like this radical empathy. You always try to see the best, even in like the worst people. So I think that was almost her downfall. And unfortunately, that led to Clayton's downfall.
Absolutely. And Frank, to kind of keep on that point, where as Bronte is having this conversation with the officer in Atlantic Beach, right? They're trying to understand who this group is, why they've been stalking Joe for the last 3+ years, and then understanding what happened the night or the just a few hours earlier with Clayton's death, how things had escalated, right? And in trying to understand that, Bronte is starting to change her mind about who really started the fight, right? Why did it begin? Because before it was, you know, well, Clayton was putting me in harm's way. You know, he grabbed my arm at the bookstore opening. He actually hurt me. And in Clayton's mind, it was, hey, well, we've just shown everyone how violent Joe can be in front of other people. She's like, or did we prove that he will do whatever it takes to protect a woman who's being harmed, right? So you're starting to see her shift. And in doing so, she kind of makes a surprise statement to the officer. What was that statement that Bronte gave about, did Joe really actually murder Clayton, or was it self-defense? Talk us through all that.
Yeah, so while she's like pretty much telling the officer what happened, she has like flashbacks of like all the things that happened leading up to that moment. From Clayton, you know, grabbing her in the bookstore, to like the little tussle that her and Clayton had at the beach house, to Joe coming in and saving the day, and like, you know, I guess self-defense. And she pretty much comes clean and says, you know, I felt like Joe protected me. It was self-defense. I had no idea what Clayton was going to do to me at that point. If Joe had not intervened, who knows what Clayton would have done. And like, I guess kind of like he was so hinged on like trying to bring Joe down, he would have done anything and harmed anybody to like, you know, let light to show that Joe's the culprit. But while doing that, it kind of like he lost his own humanity along the way of like caring for people and like making sure that the very team they decided to work with, Dominique and Bronte, I can't remember the other lady's name, but Phoenix, you know, the very team that he tried to work with, he is now like putting them in harm's way, not giving a damn to clear his name. And like, and while she's telling the officer that, simultaneously she's convincing herself that, you know what, this is what I need. A guy like Joe, who I lost my way, and like he's been there for me every step of the way, protecting me, and I'm just now realizing that. As fuck, and I'm as a viewer, I'm watching this, and I want to be sensitive to this, because we have a lot of women around the world who have Stockholm syndrome, who have a passion for their captors, and I think that was a vital example of a woman convincing herself from what she went through, the trauma she went through losing her mother, the trauma she went through trying to find herself, and the failure she has, as a writer, losing her friend Beck. Like, she felt like this was like the silver lining, or the shining, the knight in the shining armor that came in the right time to save her. And that this is the mental gymnastics of trying to convince yourself and falling in love with the idea of somebody more than what that person actually is. Joe's a fucking monster. He is a monster to the core. But in this particular moment, what she felt like she needed, she got remnants of Joe, pieces of Joe that she felt like this is what Joe is, and it's only a piece of him. And us as a viewer, we see like the caring, the protecting is a narcissistic way and a euphoria to make Joe feel good about himself, not so much of like doing this because it's the right thing, but doing it because of how it makes him feel at the end of the day, and he's chasing that high. So I can't imagine how triggering it was for people who've been in Bronte's shoes. But I hope watching this season, watching this series, women have seen and saw that, don't feel like you can accept this and feel like this is fine. This is what I need, and like I overlook all the bad, but he has 20% of what I need, and that 20% is what I've been searching for however long, through all the failed relationships I've had. And I hope that show really showed that that it's not okay. You deserve better, and like nobody deserves abuse of any kind. And to really pay attention to what people do and how they move. So yeah,
absolutely. And there's one thing I just want to reference real quick, and we'll wrap up this episode. The reference that Clayton says about Bronte being a Manson girl. Now, albeit I had to look this up because I wasn't completely sure that we were talking about Charles Manson or Marilyn Manson. Okay, let's just be real. Okay, I'm young. I don't know these things, but the Manson girl references to that of followers of Charles Manson, right? And all the horrible things that he did, yet he still had supporters in the courtroom, like laughing, carrying on, like this is not a real thing. This is like bullshit kind of situation. And that's where like this whole Stockholm syndrome thing that Frank spoke on really comes into play, because abusers' victims will then start channeling like positive thoughts and trying to rationalize and trying to say like, oh no, it wasn't like this after all. It really was something good. And we do very much see that with Bronte in this episode. This actually is one of my favorite episodes from the entire season, because one, I think explaining the backstory about Bronte and how she fits into this whole world, I think was pieced together very well. And also bringing back Guinevere Beck's character into a different new scenes, right? Elizabeth Lyle. I don't know how to pronounce her last name, but Elizabeth. She was Guinevere Beck. Love seeing her again. I think I liked her in season 1. A lot of viewers, I think at the time, didn't particularly care for her or like her story, and they thought, oh, she was just being so stupid. How could she fall for it? And it's like, people, this is almost very close to real life situation. Like, unfortunately, there are men and women who fall into situations with abusive people who are gaslighted or made to believe that everything is okay, right? And it's really unfortunate, but it's really, really true. But I liked this episode for the backstory of Bronte, why she got so invested, and then you see the character development and change of what her goal initially was, to get so involved with Joe so that she could bring justice to Beck and have some closure for herself. But then you also see like how she easily fell into that trap that is one Joe Goldberg. Really enjoyed this episode. I don't know. I was really impressed with it. Quickly in the chat, Amber says, I agree. Plus, Bronte even said the sort of romance books she likes are with morally gray men. Don't we all love that, Amber? And tons of women, quote, want a morally gray or dark romance guy until they meet one in real life. And couldn't agree more. I'm guilty. I'm one of those.
And also, oh, sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say that reminds me of somebody else that we've talked about on this pod when we've done the Yellowstone pod, when we have all of these women that are like, I want a man like Rip. And it's like, yeah, Rip has some great parts of him, but Rip is also a murderer who has killed people for John Dutton just because. And yes, he treats Beth nicely because he loves Beth, but John could tell him like, oh, this person is like standing in her way. And Rip would just go and murder them. Like no judge, jury. He was just executioner. So I think, and I would always be like, yeah, like Rip has some good parts, but he also just kills people. Like how would you feel comfortable sleeping next to somebody who, you know, could end your life if he decided to, if you fell from his good graces? So yeah, that's a really great point that Amber brings up.
It's this affinity for dangerous men. I don't know why. It's like Brittany and I, we watch House of the Dragon, and like Daemon Targaryen is another character that so many women kind of like just gloss over the bad that he's done. The man killed his first wife. He killed his first wife and tried to fuck his niece. Like,
Did
it's like,
he though?
He tried to fuck his niece. He fucked his niece.
And as a genre, we look at he's a badass on the battlefield. He whoops ass and he defends his brother. But it's like, no, but he's a pedophile. He's a murderer. Like we can't just take parts of people and be like, oh, this part's good, but you know, I'll take this part, but leave the rest of the bad away from me. No, you got to take people who they are. And like, I think it's just something about danger in men that we idolize and glorify in this culture. And I think this show is a good example. Even, well, I know we'll get to the finale, but even like with some of the letters that Joe got, like that scene reminded me of Ted Bundy towards the latter day of his life.
Oh yeah,
he was getting letters left. The man killed over 130 women, or over 100 women.
Yep.
They said up towards 150 women, like at one point, and like they look at the charming, you know, the way he moves and like the hair and like the smile is like, we gotta do a better job of like, you know, calling a spade a spade. You know what I'm saying, when it comes to like these crooked, evil people.
No, this is true. And to Amber's point, you know, she talks about how this whole trope is very real with us book girlies and boys, if you will, that, you know, you get into bad boys and they think all bad boys have a silver lining and that they're good, but usually they're just, you know, bad. And to, you know, wrap up this point, they all assume they'd be the one that the bad guy changes for, or they would never do that to me. And this is very true because Bronte like fits that idea, that role. And we'll talk about that in Filet Adieu, which is episode 8. To wrap up this episode, when Joe is released from prison, because obviously the Lockwoods are going to use the resources to get him out, despite the fact that he obviously has been caught online or put on blast online for having murdered somebody. He's signing papers. And this is why it's really important to read the paperwork before you sign things, people, because when he gets home to Kate, who's furious, she reveals to him that he signed over temporary custody rights to her in the paperwork, and he's furious. But I love Kate showing her teeth at this moment, because when he did try to come after her, she kind of did like a quick like hand to the throat move to stop him, and threatens him and says, you know, on the other side of this wall are armed bodyguards. If you do anything like that ever again, they will do what they have to do to take you out. And if you behave, you will still have access to Lockwood resources. But if you don't, you're shit out of luck. And I'm like, ooh.
Can we talk about it real quick? Like, I like how she low key just hit the man in the throat like it was nothing. Are the Lockwood and the women, are they ninjas? Like between Reagan
Probably.
like whooping Joe's ass, and then Kate with that quick move to the throat, like what are they, assassins? Like how did they are stone cold fighters.
Yes, no, you're absolutely right, because Reagan kicked his ass. Yeah, love that for them. but yeah, she did not hesitate. She did not like second guess herself. It was such a badass movement. I wish we had more of that Kate throughout this series. Like that would have been fantastic. So that wraps up episode 6. Let's move on to hashtag Joe Goldberg. And quickly, Marcy, I'm going to start with you. Overall thoughts on this episode?
I thought this episode was good as well. It definitely does a great job of portraying like what our society does when we have these dubious characters, or when we have people that are out here acting a fool, committing crimes, and we're just willing to overlook it because they're either handsome or rich or any combination of that, or they're privileged. And then in the court of public opinion, like you don't know what the truth is. Like everybody runs with whatever they pick up. They get a little bit snippet of something and then they completely like run with it. So it does a really great job of just showing how shit we are as a society and how we need to do better for sure. But yeah, Joe was definitely trending on socials.
I blame TikTok. Just saying, I blame TikTok. I'm not on it. I will never be on it. It is what it is. Frank, overall thoughts on hashtag Joe Goldberg?
Good episode, man. I felt the pace picked up a little bit more in that episode. You feel that's when I started feeling the walls closing on Joe. As far as like, okay, the world knows what this motherfucker's up to. Like, you can't run from the world at this point. Like, everybody knows who you are, from the killing online to everything slowly coming, to the forefront. The Lockwoods being more focused now, more motivated to bring you down. I was like, bro, the walls started to close in. So I thought that was a good episode. As far as seeing the beginning of the end of like of Joe, like his luck running out.
Yeah, for sure. And we see real desperation coming out of Joe in this moment, because once again, he signed over temporary custody rights to his wife, who's also going to divorce him. And he's like, you won't keep me from my son. So he goes through to some great lengths, I guess, to try to keep track of Henry, right? And Joe is smart. I'll give him that. He uses books to his advantage. He puts like a little tracking chip in The Hobbit, which is the book that he and Henry have been reading nightly. And in Joe's mind, he's like, listen, I want to give a sense of normalcy to Henry. He tries to go give the book to Henry at school, but that counselor, which I had a message Frank, because I was like, oh, I've seen this woman before. She was the prosecutor in Netflix Daredevil. She was Reyes, R.I.P. Reyes. But yeah, she's phenomenal. She intercedes and is like, hey, sorry, we can't do that, but I'll be more than happy to give Henry the book. Well, that's how Joe can keep track of Henry. Sorry, I just like went blank for a split second. Teddy, Marcy, we love us some Teddy. Teddy will take Henry to keep him safe at an unknown property that Kate Lockwood has acquired in the West Village. Talk us through the encounter that Joe had with Teddy, and then how Henry also got involved with that.
Joe kind of, I guess he's putting his like listening skills to good use, because he was able to trick the bodyguard, who is a shitty ass bodyguard, if all he had to do was just like catfish him and make him think like his ex was texting him. So he got fired, of course. But then also, like, Teddy, why are you just like answering the door? Like, that crazy Joe is out there. Like, I would at least like look through the peephole before I just open the door.
He had a ring camera, didn't he? Or did he?
Oh, I didn't even like notice, but
or was it just like the intercom of like typical New York buildings?
Probably just an intercom, but okay. Like, what are you doing? So goes in, tries to appeal to him and, say like, hey, I'm the only one who like, I've been there for you. Like the Lockwoods, they didn't even care about you until they just brought you into the fold 3 years ago. Like, trying to get him on his side. That obviously was not going to work, because Teddy is loyal to Kate. If there's one thing Teddy is he is loyal. So they get to fighting. knife is involved. Luckily, Henry walks in and, you know, harm does not come to Teddy, which I was like, please do not kill this man. Like, he is the one character, maybe like out of 2 or 3 that I've been enjoying this season. So, yeah, Henry interrupts them, and that's got to be traumatic, right? Because as a kid, you don't know what's going on, but it's also scary to see your dad holding a knife to your uncle. So yeah, I think Henry is going to have a lot of trauma to unpack for, you know, the foreseeable future. But, you know, if Henry hadn't walked in, who knows what would have happened to Teddy? And then how would Joe have explained that to Henry? Like, hey, don't look over there, but we got it now. So luckily, after Henry walked in, that's when the rest of the bodyguards walked in. And Kate was pissed, as she should be.
Yeah, for sure. That one bodyguard fired, as you previously mentioned. I was going to ask Frank a question, but he seems to have stepped away real quick. We will keep on moving through. So Dominique and Phoenix are, you know, they put out the TikTok of Clayton's death. Of course, it's been taken down, but they want to keep putting out information about Joe. They want to recruit Bronte to kind of help feed this information out to social media. And Bronte is obviously not like willing to play along. She's just like, no, she's just not into it. She's going back and forth about wanting to text Joe and just be like, I'm sorry for everything. Like, this is not how it was supposed to be, or something along those lines. Frank, Joe will blackmail Maddie into kind of helping him. So he has to, they have to revamp his image, right? And in doing so, they recruit a influencer of some kind, not a real journalist, but someone who apparently she talks, she gets a lot of viewers, lots of reactions, lots of people will tune in. Walk us through what that interview looked like and how that kind of actually did help Joe in the long run.
Yeah, it's funny because like right before the interview, Maddie preps Joe. It's like, hey man, you are an affluent white man in America. If anything, you better not cry, because it's gonna look very disingenuous, very fake. And Joe complies, right? Like Joe agrees, like, okay, you're right. And like Joe walks into the, you know, his cage, and he talks about how in his basement, he talks about how he was abused by Mooney, the guy on the bookstore, and like how when he misbehaved, he'll be put in that cage for hours, sometimes without food or water, and like it became a trigger, I think, for him. And like he thought about all the times where he was abused, not just abused by Mooney, but just abandonment, I think, from his mother as well, and like the violence that he saw as a child. And I think it all just hit him at once. And man, that's one of the better acting scenes by Penn, because for one, to cry on demand, to cry like at a moment's notice, from a memory, and to convey that, for a split second, I felt bad for him. And I have affinity for kids. I feel like kids are innocent. They're not asked to be here. That they have no control over that. And when a child goes through abuse, goes through, you know, torture, or just being just mishandled by, you know, by an adult parent, guardian, whatever, it really strikes me. It's a trigger for me. I had a great childhood. My mom was awesome to me. Grandma was dope. But while Joe was talking about that, and you see, it was probably one of the more like sincere moments from a guy who uses, you know, insincerity and like narcissism to get what he wants. That was probably like the only time you truly saw Joe for who he was, and like for the first time saw Joe as a victim from his upbringing, his origin story. And he just breaks down. He breaks down while he's talking to this fake ass journalist, or this influencer who has so much, you know, influence online, who can change the narrative for anybody at a moment's notice. it was a great scene, but I also hated it from the standpoint that this is so indicative and accurate of social media. How social media can just control, whether the narrative is true or not. When a narrative is created online, enough people believe it and see a certain image of it or a certain side of it, it can just get flipped on its ear, for better or for worse. And it's weird because like just the day before, everybody's talking about how evil Joe is, and he should get what he deserves. He deserves to die, and he ain't shit. To like people just feeling bad for him. It's like, bro, he just killed somebody online like the day before. Like, what are we talking about? So that scene I thought was very powerful, and I thought was very, very accurate on the thumb of like the metaverse in today's times.
Absolutely. And it shows to how what happens to a child or just a person in general, it eventually could turn into a learned behavior to which could be inflicted on others throughout life, which is what's happening with Joe. Not trying to make excuses for him, people. Don't come at me. Just saying. It was very, very traumatic for him, and it broke him and therefore was successful. So if it could break him, why wouldn't it break other people? And it certainly broke Bronte because she is struggling with being loyal to her friends and the cause that got them all together to bring justice to Beck and what have you. But then she flipped on them. She flipped on them by telling the officer, hey, it was self-defense. It wasn't murder. He was protecting me. And for Dom to learn the truth of the matter, she's just completely beside herself. And she's like, oh my God, do you love him? Are you in love with him? And basically kicks out Bronte. Bronte is, homeless, if you will, and stumbles upon, now I won't say stumble, but she goes to Mooney's. She sees the setup for this TikTok interview and tunes in on her phone. And when the interviewer questions Joe about, well, did you love Bronte? Was it real? And he's initially saying, well, no, I thought it was real. It was wrong, but no, like this was like the worst decision of my life. And that's when Bronte cuts off. She buys a ticket to go back home to Ohio, sends one final text message to Joe that he checks after his breakdown. And then he completely changes his tune about how he feels towards her. And that's how he charms everyone, right? Remember, he's called Prince Charming in New York for a fucking reason, right? Bronte says something along the lines of, for what it's worth, I told the officers that it was self-defense. And he's like, you do love me. It was real. And I'm like, oh, bro. Oh, here we go again. I just couldn't believe it. But yes, I could. You could see in the live chat how quickly people shifted their thinking. Oh, this guy is horrible. He needs, fuck him. I like, oh, I feel bad for him now. Like, I see where he's coming from. Like, I want someone to do that for me. And it's just like, oh, Joe, as it moves, pops into the chat and says, oh, Joe, yes, facepalm entirely. But yeah, Joe charms people into believing him, right? Gaslights the hell out of the situation. And it's just absolutely bonkers. We're gonna quickly wrap up this episode too. Is there anything else, guys, that you want to like just chime in about that maybe we've kind of overlooked during that whole interview? No.
Wondering, Joe ends up in jail at the end. Spoiler alert. I wonder if he's in the same jail as Luigi Mangione, and who gets more fan mail? Is it Luigi or Joe? Because I think they would be neck and neck. But we can talk about that when we talk about Joe being in jail.
They let Luigi keep his hair.
Yeah, true.
He's got great hair. Not gonna lie. But we'll circle back to that. I'll just quickly wrap up what this episode was. So Joe claims, as I said, that what he did was out of love, and people begin to, just fall for him, rally, what have you. But unfortunately for Bronte, social media is what it is. Social media starts coming after her, saying that she's a Manson girl, that she is someone that needs to be dealt with. And there's a lot of misogynistic comments that are being shared. And then a video pops up of her actually in real time, like walking down the streets of New York. Joe springs into action, right? He's going to locate her, find her, follow her. And Frank, were you surprised to see the character that that will attempt to kidnap Bronte? Tell us who that character is, and what happened with the end of this episode.
You know what's funny? When I saw him, I had the remote in my hand, right? And when I saw him, I was like, did I change the channel? Why is Jefferson White in this episode? Like this, I was so confused. Jefferson White from Yellowstone, who plays Jimmy in Yellowstone, was in this episode. He's like this. I guess he's one of the crazies on social media who's just hating Bronte for what he did and what she did, and like doesn't see Bronte as a real woman and all this stuff, and like how she doesn't deserve protection, all that stuff. So he has his grand plan. Now, who's to say what he would have done to her? But he had his grand plan of like kidnapping her and taking her somewhere. But he had rope, he had bondage in the back of the van. Joe, this is one of the times where Joe stalking somebody actually pays off. He's able to stop Jefferson. I mean, I can't. Is it Dean? What was his name? Was it Dean? Is that his name in the episode?
Wade.
I can't remember his name, but
Warren. I don't know.
But he was able.
White,
but he stops. He stops Jefferson White's character, knocks him over the head.
Dane.
Yeah, and before you know it, Bronte's knocked out at this point.
Yeah.
So when she wakes up, she's chained to a bed back at Joe's old apartment above the bookstore. And at this point, I'm thinking to myself, where the fuck is Jefferson White? Is he dead? Like, is he gone? I was so confused because I was like, this is so random. Like, but yeah, like Jefferson White played a guy who was really upset by how Bronte was viewed as a victim and how he felt like she didn't deserve the empathy or sympathy that she was getting, and he wanted to do something about it. So
yeah, it was funny because I binge watch you pretty quickly, and John, my husband, does not watch the shows that I like to watch, nor does he like to binge. But he just so happened to cross by as Jimmy, quote unquote Jimmy, comes on the screen. He goes, "Hey, that's Jimmy." I'm like, what the hell? It was just so funny. I was like, wait a minute. I'm like, Jimmy, I've seen a couple of episodes of Yellowstone, and I'm like, that guy. Yes, that guy that had Bono's daughter, or not Bono. Who was it? That was in Yellowstone.
Josh Brolin's daughter.
Brolin. I don't know why I say Bono. Brolin. Yeah. I was like, that guy that could get two girls. Impressive. Yeah. He couldn't get this one though, because Joe got to him first. Basically. Yeah, no, Joe, in very Joe fashion, grabs like a cement block, smashes the hell out of Jimmy with it, and basically that is the end of episode 7, entitled Joe Goldberg, excuse me. Let's go into Filet-A-Deux, which I think is so funny because obviously here on our podcast we did review Joker Filet-A-Deux, which is the sequel to Joker, the Joaquin Phoenix movie, which I really fully enjoyed. All right. And if you're not familiar with what the term Filet-A-Deux means, it's basically two people are having like the same imagination or living the same illusion, fantasy, whatever the case may be. And this, for me, the way that Marcy and I described this to Frank when he was watching it, this was the acid trip of the season, in my personal opinion. But yeah, the title was so appropriately named, and Bronte and Joe are going to reconcile. But first, Bronte has to wake up from her handcuffed sleep, as you do, right? Joe having taken her back to the apartment, and he's just like on top of the world, right? The headlines are no longer in the negative for Joe Goldberg. They're positive, right? Everyone's for him, and he's just, living his best life at this point. But Bronte is injured, right? She's got a sprained ankle, right? Because she, quote, fell This is important info for later people. Frank with his side eye. They basically agree to give each other another chance, and they're bonding like nothing ever happened, right? So one thing that will happen, and Marcy, I want you to talk about this, is that Joe will take Bronte because he has something to show her, right? And they go downstairs to Mooney's basement to look at the cage because that is where Dane, the kidnapper, excuse me, is locked up. And Joe basically tells Bronte, do whatever you want. Like, talk to him. I've got weapons here for you to, do your worst. I've got like a needle with God knows what is in there. He had other instruments of torture, if you will, but he has to go leave because Maddie has an emergency. We'll talk about that momentarily, but talk to us about Dane and Bronte while he's in the cage.
Yeah, I didn't think we'd see much of Dane after he got knocked out. It was like, oh, that probably killed him. That was a very short cameo by Jefferson White. We see him again in the cage, of course, the cage. I would not think this would be romantic. Like, yes, thank you for saving me from this would-be kidnapper incel guy, but you didn't need to keep him in a cage for me. And then for him to be like, hey, for Joe to be like, hey, you can pretty much decide what you want to do with him. Like, talk to him, get to know him, decide, how you want to kill him, if you want to kill him. Probably thinking like, how can I get her to also understand me and to come to understand how you would get into that place where you would like to see somebody who you think has wronged you in this cage at your mercy, and like you being able to play God essentially and like figure out what happens with them. So this is where I was like, this bitch is crazy. Like, what is happening? Run away, please. So yes, we still have a little bit more of Jefferson White to see.
And Frank, with Jefferson kind of really resisting talking to Dane, really resisting talking to Bronte, right? He is lashing out, calling her a whore, calling her all these sorts of names and what have you. And Bronte just like keeping her cool. She's like, hey, like you're in this cage, like you can't hide from this cage, literally, like aside from physically, like emotionally, mentally, you just can't escape where you are. And so she kind of starts trying to relate to him on a personal level. He reveals that his mother's sick, that she's the epitome of what women should be. And, Bronte is also vulnerable. She's like, yeah, my mom, I took care of my mom until the very end. Did you think that maybe Dane in this moment would have like a true turning point of his opinion towards not only Bronte, but like women in general?
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like he had a shot of getting out of there and being free until he just spazzes out again. I can't remember exactly what happened, but he says something to the effect of "Don't compare yourself to my mom," or "Don't compare what you've done to like the epitome of a good woman." And it's like, bruh, she's trying to appeal to you. Like you are at her whim. Like this man wants to kill you for harming this young lady, and she's trying to give you an out. And he just comes off as a guy that has been picked over by women all his life. That's been like women that he seeks or he desires just overlook him, and it looks like to me he's just a guy that's just bitter. He's a bitter guy that just doesn't. That's been given, I guess not. I won't say a fair shake, but like just hasn't been, the favor of women that he desires, and like it comes out in different ways. Even like when she asked him, "What was you planning to do to me?" He was like, "Oh, I just wanted to show you a lesson and just tie you up. Like, can't mean to tie you up, but like just scare you." I'm like, bro, like that's not how the world works. You don't go around kidnapping women to teach them a lesson and like police them and correct them. Like that's not like his view, his world view of like how women is so skewed. Even at the disadvantage that he's in, just even like posing as somebody who's grateful, he couldn't even do that. Like his ego wouldn't allow him to like, how dare I'm not gonna appeal to you. I'm not gonna beg for my life. You wench, you lesser than. Like it's like it's this classism, this misogynistic classism that he has. Even at the most disadvantaged position that he's in, he couldn't dare like give her the upper hand and like even acknowledge how fucked up this is on his part and how much he's fucked. Like his ego wouldn't allow it. And it's one of those things where like you have so many men like that. It's like, and it's scary how men don't view women as equals. They don't. In his mind, like a bad woman in his mind it's subhuman. Like just because a woman don't fuck with you or doesn't believe in the ideology that you believe in doesn't make her less than. And that's pretty much what I saw.
Or that he has to take it upon himself to teach her a lesson. Like who appointed you to be the one to teach anyone a lesson for that matter? And what was revealed in the conversation between Bronte and Dane was that his mother coddled him, right? So she probably doted on him, gave him everything he wanted. And when someone tells him no, particularly a woman, that does not set well with him, right? We hurt the ego, and it's a very I can only think of it in Spanish, machismo way of thinking, and unfortunately, it is a reality for many people, and it's very disturbing. But what really tipped off Bronte was Dane says, yeah, you're not so bad. Like I was wrong about you. He goes, I'll keep that in mind, the next time I go out to do what I'm going to do. And she's like, what do you mean next time? He's like, yeah, he knows to teach other women, like to deal with other women. She's like, no one fucking deserves this, like ever. And he's like, don't raise your voice at me, you whore. And it's just like quick, like everything just went out the window. Everything that they just spoke about went out the window, and he starts freaking out. You think that maybe this would be the point that Bronte will use one of, like the weapons or the needle or something to deal with him. But she does something surprising instead. Marcy, tell us what she ends up doing. And when Joe returns, what was the explanation?
Joe returns and Dane is gone. And I don't remember what the explanation was because I didn't rewatch this one after binging it when it came out. So refresh my memory.
So what it was is that she let him go. She did get his like personal assets, passwords, like we'll be watching you, to scare him. Right. But she ends up saying to him that this wasn't really about Dane. This was a test for me.
Yeah.
To see if I was going to be loyal and what have you. And then she puts herself in the cage.
Fucking weird. That's weird for me, and that's why I didn't rewatch this again. I just rewatched a couple of them again, but that's where I was very angry of what was happening. I was like, bitch, what are you doing? And that just that was really triggering for me, just because I know of women who have like fallen for like these terrible guys, or just thinking about like relationships I've had where I'm like, this is not good for you, baby girl. Like you are in danger. These are lies. This person is not good. So that's when it started to get very triggering for me. And it's like, what are you doing? Like, why are you putting yourself at the mercy of this guy who can kill you? Like, why are you willingly putting yourself in this cage? Again, bitch, this is your second time in the cage. So at this point, I'm not loving Bronte very much. I'm like, you stupid bitch. So, but she redeems herself.
Not in this episode, but eventually. Frank, the conversation, not so much conversation, but while in the cage, she basically says to Joe, you can't lie in here, right? So ask me anything. He asks her a bunch of questions. One that caught her off guard was, do you love me? And she's like, I wasn't expecting that, but yes, I do love you. She's no longer catfishing him. Everything is real at this point. And then she challenges him to go in the cage to deal with his inner demons. What did you make of that for Joe to be back in the cage, given what had happened when he was doing that TikTok live interview in the cage and completely broke down.
Yeah, I thought the worst was going to come out, because like the last time you saw him in there, he broke down, and a lot of times it's flight. Like a lot of times when you're facing psychological trauma, a lot of times it's fight or flight, and he broke down crying. And this time around, I was like, man, is he going to get aggressive? Is he going to try to like break the cage? Is he going to get to that hidden key that's in the cage and like just kind of like, is Reese Joe gonna come out and get aggressive and like kill her if she asked the wrong questions? I didn't know what to expect. I thought it was gonna be all bad. When she asked the question, I think she asked if he killed Beck, right? Is that was the question she asked? I can't remember exactly what the question was.
You know what? Bad me. I didn't go back to rewatch that.
I think he asked the question like, did you harm Beck, or do you know?
I think it was, have you killed anyone who was ever innocent? And he's like, no, which is true. Like he's never done it. Love killed people who were innocent.
Yeah.
But he himself, I just can't remember all the questions that were asked, but go ahead and I'll look.
Yeah. So when she asked that, when he said no to that question that he never did, I thought that he was going to kind of spaz out and like break out of that cage. But in a weird twisted way, that was Joe instilling trust in her to like, hey, my safety's in your hands. You saw what I went through in that interview. So now I'm going to put this trust back in your hands, and hopefully that you don't take advantage of this. And it was a weird way of like showing trust, and like, I guess Bronte passing the test. And like they came out. I don't hate the episode, but I just hate everything that transpired after that. It's like the love got stronger. And it was a form of trauma bonding that happened in that cage that fortified their so-called love after those round of questions. And it was sickening to watch. It really made me sick to watch that shit. And like Marcy said, at this point, I'm done with Bronte. I'm just like over her. I'm like, bro, you have the chance of a lifetime to like put this dude away, and you keep protecting this motherfucker. And it was sickening to see how she pretty much let him free after that. I'm like, dude, like you could have kept him in there. You could have like tried to get a confession, ask more questions to like trying to get him to say something to incriminate himself. But again, she's so caught up in like, I guess, serving protection because he protects her. It's like in her mind, it's like I have to show my allegiance to you because what you've done for me so far, and what you was willing to put your life on the line to protect me. And this is me showing my allegiance to you. It made me barf. I hated that.
Yeah. So to kind of wrap up the Joe in the cage situation, what he basically tells Bronte is that he needs to kill. Like it's who he is. Like he has to do it because in his mind, that's how he earns someone's love, and that's how he keeps their love. But she's like, but what if I tell you it's enough to know that you would just do that for me, right? You don't have to prove anything. Like I know that you would go to the ends of the earth to protect me because you love me, but I don't, like, in other words, she's saying I don't need you to kill just to prove that point, right? But that's not what Joe hears at all, obviously, right? Because he is a twisted man, and he, you know, he's free, if you will, right? He knows that this is no longer the thing that ties one person to another, and he will still go ahead, find Dane, and kill him. It doesn't matter what Bronte said to him. After all, he's like, I just need to kill because he enjoys it, right? But before he makes that kill, Joe makes a phone call to Kate, who at this point is in London. She has taken Henry to London. We see Lady Phoebe once again, which I loved her in season 4. She was so adorable and just so sweet. Poor thing, just had a really, really bad string of luck with life, right? Obviously. And she seems to be doing well. But Kate is in London because she's meeting up with Nadia, who's been in prison for the last 3 years. Because Kate has put her there, right? She has helped Joe frame Nadia for the murder of people. I just couldn't remember. Eat the rich killer type things, right? And Kate now wants to make amends. She wants to right her wrongs. She breaks Nadia out of jail. Now they're like working together to try and come up with like things to put together to take Joe down, right? And while there was this meeting, or after the meeting that Kate had with an attorney in London, where the attorney was like, hey, listen, Kate, you've been a part of a lot of this stuff too. It's going to be hard for you to get immunity when you've been complicit, right? And Kate's like, listen, whatever it takes, it's fine. But Joe calls, says, hey, Kate, I don't want to keep you for very long, but I just want to let you know that like, I'm good. I'm free. Like I'm in a better place. And she's like, you're more deranged than ever. What's happened? Can we give some credit to the writers for this moment? Like also Charlotte, who I think that's her name, right? Charlotte, am I like changing her name?
Yeah.
Charlotte Ritchie, who plays Kate Lockwood, like how deadpan she was in this moment was just so fucking brilliant. But oh my gosh, yeah. What were y'all's thoughts with everything that was unfolding between that conversation with Joe and Kate? Because Kate's like, Joe, like you've done horrible things, and he's like, yeah, but you know, I've also we need to keep the kid out of it because it's not a good chess piece to, you know, involve kids. And she's like, you've done terrible things. Yeah, well, I've never killed children. Marcy, thoughts on that whole conversation between Joe and Kate?
That just, you know, how sometimes life imitates reality, and you think back on times where somebody's told you that they've changed or they're like in a great place, and you're like, bitch, what? Like, no, you're insane. You are not healed. You are insane. So that was just that was funny, like her reaction. But Joe leveraging that, like that's cold, right? Because Kate, unlike Joe, felt remorse about that, right? Like, yes, she, you know, did that and kids got cancer and died, but it's not like she's celebrating that. Like, she genuinely felt remorse. And then she tried to like make amends by like doing all of these great things with the company and like their nonprofit. So, you never know what Joe is going to do. And I wasn't expecting him to hit back with that, but I like that, that Kate was like, you know what, you know, when she's facing repercussions, she's like, you know, whatever, like it takes. I admired that she wasn't like, well, like, let's keep on like covering for Joe because then that would implicate me. Like,
Yeah.
that kind of like really redeemed Kate for me, and then just made me like kept on hating Joe because I was like, you are terrible. Like, what? You are not okay. You need to be institutionalized. Like, Joe, what are you thinking?
And on that note, I mean, redeeming qualities of Kate Lockwood, right? Frank, when she comes to the conclusion that she needs to kill Joe, was she redeemed or did she take like 10 steps backwards?
30 steps backwards. Like it didn't make sense. Like you sat here and said you went out of your way to like, you know, get old girl out of jail, you know, saying that you helped put in. You told her we got to bring Joe down. We gotta expose him for what he is. The world got to see him for what he is. And then you go back 36% saying you got to kill this dude. Like Kate's character and consistency, like thereof this season, was one of my disappointments of the season. She was all over the place. It didn't make sense for her writing. She goes from like sending the pit bull Joe to kill her uncle to be like, this is not who we are, to I gotta bring this man down. He's not an unfit father, to I gotta put him in jail. I gotta right the wrongs that he did, to rule these innocent people to now I gotta kill his man. Like she's all over the place. And I don't know if that was by design, but it looked like to me it was very poor writing on her part. For as rich as she is, for the unlimited resources she has, I wish I would have seen some more calculated moves by her. because like even in season 4, you find out that she did all these things to clear Joe's name and put these people in prison and gain control interest of Lockwood Industries or whatever, only to like become a thug and like almost like a fool in this season with no rhyme or reason. It was just, I don't know. I thought they kind of ruined the character a little bit, but like the very thing that her father built and the very thing that her father taught their kids to be calculated, to be cold, to like smash the competition, it kind of went out the window and it became like just Neanderthal thinking and brute like thinking of like just killing somebody and not like trying to right the wrongs and like trying to find justice for the multiple victims that this man has caused. Her writing, her character profile was weird this season, in my opinion.
But this is something that Joe has been trying to tap into Kate for her to come to terms with, that she does possess the killer instinct when it's necessary. And she didn't want to be that person, right? She's trying so hard to be good and trying to get him to be good with her and not go to these extreme measures of, having to take out people just so that nothing gets in the way of the company. But when she's telling Nadia after that conversation about, it's dawned on me, it's relieving. Actually, it's a huge relief. And it's like, what? Well, I've got to kill Joe. And it's like, that's also who she is. Like, she is very similar to her. She is very similar to Joe in that respect, because when it's necessary, despite their philosophy on why it's necessary, she's going to do what she has to do in order to be rid of the problem. As much as she wanted to fight it throughout this season, that is who she actually is, because that is who her father raised her to be.
I also wonder if, after having that conversation with Joe, she knows how deranged he is. I wonder if she thought like that's the only way to get rid of Joe, because as we've seen, like, he can be charming. Like, maybe he'll go to jail, but how will he charm his way out of that, right? Like, maybe he'll go to trial. How is he going to charm himself in front of those 12 jurors? Maybe like possibly get let out. So I think maybe a part of her was like, yeah, we got to kill this man, because otherwise he's going to weasel his way out of trouble, like he always has.
Mm-hmm. He did say to her in that conversation about Henry and the temporary custody arrangements, what have you, that she's complicit. If he goes down, she's going to go down. Like, he is going to rat her out. And that's one point I want to talk about at the very end when we get to the finale. We're almost there, y'all. Thank y'all so much for hanging in there with us. We appreciate it. Really quickly, Frank, to wrap up this episode, I mentioned earlier that when Joe left Bronte to her devices with Dane in the cage, Joe left because Maddie had an emergency, right? She had to knock out Harrison, who's Reagan's husband, who figured out that Maddie was not Reagan. Maddie was not Reagan, that Maddie was Maddie. And she needed Joe to come over to use his mind games or mind control in order to get Harrison on board. And the struggle is very real, but Maddie was able to persuade Harrison to not say anything, obviously, right? What did you make of that whole like scene? To me, it was not that it was a weak scene, but it was one of those kind of filler things where it's just like, is this really necessary, or did it carry?
Nah, you're right, Brittany. I could have done without Maddie's side dude husband. I could have done without that scene. Like, he was such a third fiddle character this season that I could have done without that. You could have focused more on other mitigating factors. It would have been nice to see more Henry for one. I mean, this is a kid that again, like, he's had, every scene that he's in, it's he steals the show. Whether it's like, the issue with Reagan's daughter, and then like throwing the knife at Reagan at the dinner table, and like, just showing frustration. Like, he does a great job and every scene that he's in, you could have focused more on Henry in that. I didn't need to see Reagan's widower and what Reagan's sister's side dude. I didn't care for that. And then it was just, and for me, the scene ran too long. It ran way too long. Like, and it didn't make sense. Like, this man has killed so many people. This man, like, unalived your wife, bro. Like, why are you putting up a fight saying, oh, and then my morals, I can't do it. You've been fucking your wife's sister for the better part of like for 5, 6, 7 years. What the fuck are you talking about morals, bro?
Yeah.
Like it just, to me, it was a throwaway scene. That scene to me did not make the episode any stronger or better. If anything, it was just fluff.
It was. And, although the line of Harrison when he's being threatened that Joe will kill him, he's like, at least I'll die with my honor. And Maddie's all like, the fuck you mean honor? That was actually pretty funny. I do have to share this quote real quick from that episode, and or in that moment. We'll wrap on this episode. Joe, who was dealing with the phone call to London downstairs, gets a kitchen knife to go back upstairs so he can kill both of these imbeciles because he's just fed up with everything. And walks in on them. They're kissing. They're like, yeah, we'll keep the secret. We won't say anything. And Joe, inner monologue, how can these two imbeciles deserve love more than me? After everything I've done for you, everything I've lost, I have nothing, no one. And then he proceeds to get the knife and like just stab the hell out of the cushion. And I'm like, oh, we need to release ourselves, don't we? Like, good golly. That was just kind of a funny moment for me personally, but I agree with you, Frank, that that's whole like scenario was really dragged out, and more effort and writing could have been put into something else, like you said, Henry, or the development of how Kate got to the point of needing to kill Joe, to have better supporting facts. I don't know, just something.
I have a question for you, Brittany, real quick.
Yeah.
So you know how last season, and Marcy, I'll hear your input on this too. So you know how last season we find out that Joe's alter ego, his darker side, it wasn't Reese, it was really Joe. It was two parts of Joe. The more, I guess, I don't want to say angelic, the less darker part of Joe, and then Reese Joe. Mm-hmm. Do you think it would have made more sense for this season to keep on that same type of like consistency of like whether it was Reese or not, but let's have like Joe is still talking to himself and having like that split personality of him like fighting with himself and like doing all these dark things. You don't think so?
I don't think so, for the very reason that towards the end of season 4, when Joe attempts to unalive himself off the bridge, that he reveals all the dark secrets or whatever to Kate. She reveals the dark secrets back to him. And it's in that moment where he accepts both sides of him. He has been fighting to keep the two separate, because in his heart of hearts, he believed that he is one over the other. And he came to terms with, I can't fight it anymore. I need to accept both parts of me that I've been ashamed of and just move on with life. And that's why that final scene in season 4 of him looking out to New York, but the reflection back at him is that of Reese. That's when you see that he has accepted both parts into one versus seeing a separate being that is Reese. They are one and the same. So I think to continue that sort of storyline for this season would have just been extremely redundant and extremely unnecessary, because there were several times throughout this season that Joe says to Kate, listen, I've come to terms with who I am. Like, I am both good and bad. And that's, I've accepted that. I tried to do something about it, but I've learned to accept it. And that, in Kate, you need to accept that part of you too, that you're unwilling to acknowledge. Marcy, your thoughts?
Yeah, just like you said, he had come to terms with it. And so there was no need to like have that alter ego or go back and forth. And, like he tells us he's been good for the last 3 years. He tells us he hasn't killed anybody. And maybe that's why he had been able to keep that at bay, because he had come to terms with it and gotten to be okay with it until it got reignited again, probably thanks to Kate again. But yeah, I think like that set him free.
Good point. Good point.
All right, let's get into the penultimate episode entitled Trial of the Furies, one of my favorites, along with Marcy's. Quick overall thoughts on this episode. Marcy, let's start with you.
It was great. When I saw the title, I was like, okay, I think I know what's probably going to happen and who we might see, but I loved seeing just Nadia back. We get to see Marianne, which Joe is surprised about, and so was I, because I didn't remember if she had survived or not. It was just such a great episode for me because we also get a nice little meeting of Bronte and Kate, and we see Bronte become more brainwashed by Joe, for lack of a better word. Just because now he's referring to Kate as like your scary ex-wife. And it's like, Kate's not even like that scary, but like you are just projecting your feelings onto her from what you hear from Joe, right? But we know Joe is unreliable. So why are you going to believe him? He's like, you know, those deadbeat dads that get a girlfriend and like the girlfriend thinks that the baby mama is like terrible and like she's awful. She's keeping him from his kids and blah, 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 blah. The whole time, like the guy's just a deadbeat and the baby mama is just a woman just trying to get by. So it just kind of reminded me of one of those like deadbeats girlfriends that just believes what he is telling her, only believes his side of the story.
Yeah. Frank, what are your thoughts on the penultimate episode? Oh, we'll get back to Frank momentarily. Oh, now he's back. Okay, Frank, your overall thoughts on the Trial of the Furies.
Yeah, it was a good episode. I thought again, I love how they really showcase like the downfall and like the closing of the walls of the character. And I love how like with all the damage this man has done throughout the 5 seasons, that his downfall would be to like a woman, like him falling to the same path and same rigmarole of like falling hard for women, like and like you know the love bombing and like the fall in love with the newness and like feeling like he can be himself and like the narcissistic tones that he felt like he won the victory of like, oh, I finally found someone to accept me. And finally to see like it from the standpoint of the female perspective was kind of cool for a change. I kind of wish it was Kate per se, but it was good to see a perspective that wasn't Joe for a change in the penultimate.
Yeah, for sure. So just to kind of quickly lay out what's happening in this episode, it begins with Joe and Bronte thinking and planning their new life together, right? Joe, I'm going to have to mention this. Joe has like some sort of injury that has occurred on his forearm. It's bandaged and, you know, supposedly it's because he was mending a book. Sure. And I'm the, you know, Princess of England. Anyway, but as they're planning their lives together, Joe quickly finds out that any and all access to his bank accounts drained, right? Locked out of Mooney's, locked and evicted from the apartment, because remember, this is all Lockwood Corporation owned, right? So their new life together is going to be put on hold, even though Bronte has like an interview with a publisher to write their story and whatnot, which is absolutely bonkers in my opinion. But Joe is, you know, going to attempt to try and deal with Kate in the best way that he knows how to, which is stalk her. Obviously, he knows that she's back from England, and he seems to follow her into the parking garage of their place. Well, decoy, and he gets knocked out by, I think it was like a needle to the neck or something, some kind of thing. Gets knocked out, winds up in his own cage, which is great. Completely emptied. Nadia is there reading like manuscripts of the work that he has written, and she's like, "Oh, I feel so terrible for you." And of course, he was not expecting to see the former student of his who he put in jail, blamed her for murders. And then there's Kate, right? Kate has also discovered an engagement ring in Joe's pocket. I loved how like she put the ring on her middle finger and then just like flicked him off with it. It was just like those little things were just so funny to me, and it was great. But yeah, the return of Marianne, who is played by the wonderful is it Gabrielle Tati? It's Tati Gabrielle. I always want to flip the names around. She's also in the current season of The Last of Us as well, but she makes the return. Big reveal. Marcy, talk to us about this reveal with Marianne, because Joe believed that she was dead.
Joe believed she was dead. I believe she was dead. So that's when he knew, like, hey, like, I'm really fucked. Not only is Kate here and Nadia's here, I wasn't expecting to see that. Oh, and Marianne's here. Like, what horror, what nightmare am I living in? So like Frank said, the walls are closing in on Joe literally now. Like, he is in his own cage, and they explain, we'll let you out, right? And you'll be able to go to a non-extradition country, and it's gonna be all good. But Marianne's like, no, bitch, you are going to die in this cage, which was not, they were not going to let him know that. So we definitely see how affected Marianne has been by all of it. And she has this great moment with Bronte where Bronte is still kind of like in her brainwashed state. And then Marianne just does a really great job of explaining, like, yeah, like, that's how he can get you. And then you don't realize how much you have been brainwashed. And it was great when she was able to confront Joe and just be like, hey, my daughter is 14 now, and she doesn't understand why I'm so overprotective. It's because I don't want her to get in trouble and fall for someone like you that will do the same thing to her that you did to me. So I thought that was great for her to point out to him how much he affected her, because in his mind, right, like, all he does is to help these people, and specifically these women. So having him know, like, no, you didn't help me. You pretty much destroyed my life. I thought that was just great to let her have that moment of, like, here's how you really messed me up, and you don't get to think that you were helping me.
And keeping on topic with that, Frank, when Marianne was having it out with Joe is still gaslighting the hell out of her, still reminding her about all the things that he did for her and Madre Linda to help her get her daughter. Like, what did you make of that with Joe not listening to what Marianne had to say? I mean, he clearly just thinks irrationally in comparison, right? I mean, just tell us your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the groundwork and the personality traits of somebody who's sociopathic, right? It's never my fault. It's I looked out for you. The accountability or lack thereof resides strongly. He's the knight of shining armor element that he has, that he has done no wrong, and everything he has done that was wrong was because of somebody else. It wasn't because of him. And she's pleading to this man, like, what you've done, why I'm so overprotective of my daughter, why I still have tremors and and just nightmares of what you've done to me, and like, you left me for dead. Like, she's literally telling this man, you left me for dead. You thought I was dead. He even said it. Oh, I thought you was dead. I didn't know you was alive. And like, for him to just sideswipe all the plea that she said to say, but I helped you though. I got your daughter. I traveled across the Atlantic, across the pond to be with you. And it's like, bro, like, when is it gonna come to a time where you actually realize all the damage you've done? And again, it's on brand with somebody who's a serial killer. It's on brand with somebody who's a narcissist. It's on brand with somebody who's sociopathic, who has elements of psychoticness. This is what they are, and they're never gonna ever accept blame. It's always gonna be, well, I did this because, or this is the cause. You are the cause of why my actions are what they are, and that's just who he is. And it's pretty much been on brand all series long of what makes Joe Goldberg Joe Goldberg.
Absolutely. And because we, the audience, see who Joe Goldberg really is, Marianne makes it a point to tell that to Bronte when she comes in after having actually met Kate in person, right? She, breaks into the apartment to retrieve her belongings. Kate just was like, hey, she was real cool about it. She's like, hey, I just wanted to, meet you, see who you are, that kind of situation. They exchange words to where Bronte is defending Joe, and Kate's like, you are setting yourself up for a disaster. And Marianne will echo more or less the same sentiments, but tells it in a more compelling way of the psyche of what we as women see in men, right? When we're at our lowest and you have that man come into your life and says, I'm going to pick you up and lift you up. I'm going to be there for you. I'm going to, everything that any person for that matter would want to hear, to feel safe, to feel protected, to feel loved. He knows how to use that as a weapon against women. And it breaks something within Bronte, right? She can't listen to it anymore, but that Marianne has gotten through, right? Whereas Nadia, poor Nadia, she has gone through so much. Obviously, she's been in jail for the last 3 years. We learned that her father had died as a result of what had happened. She's had enough, right? She wants to kill Joe. And because she's in the United States, it's very easy to get a gun if you know where to look. And so she busts out that gun to try and end it all. But Kate and company are able to convince her to not. They leave the basement. And this is when things got really trippy for me personally, because Joe unbandages his arm. You see the stitches, and he begins to pick at it, bites into his skin, because underneath is an extra key to get out from the cage. Now, why, for God's sakes, why on earth did he do that? What in the hell made him think that even though Bronte said she was with him, that he didn't need to kill to gain her love? Why did he feel that he needed to leave a spare key in his body? Marcy, thoughts?
I don't think he fully then trusted Bronte. He was like, what if she's catfishing me again, or if she's trying to trick me again? That's hardcore. That's how you know, Joe, you definitely have problems. He's lucky that he didn't get some kind of infection, but I just kind of cringed and winced when I saw that, because I was like, what is happening? And it was probably the middle of the night when I got to this episode too. So I was just like, what am I seeing? Am I saying this correctly? But yeah, I think it came down to he didn't trust that Bronte wouldn't try to get him in the cage again to set him up. He claims to love her and that he trusts her, but I don't think he fully trusts her deep down.
I think that's a good take. Frank, I'm going to ask you the same question, but extend that question even further. Did Joe do this in preparation for Bronte, or in preparation because he knew he was going to go after Kate and things might go sideways with Kate, as they absolutely did?
Yeah, I don't think Joe fully ever trusts any woman. I think he's always after the events of what happened with Guinevere and being stuck in the cage in season 1, Love being poisoned by her and damn near paralyzed by her and almost killed by her. I think that was him learning his lesson of you know what? I do love this woman. I do love Bronte. I think she's the one, and so on and so forth. But just in case that bitch ain't the one, I'm gonna I'm gonna be ready in case shit goes left. And I think at this point, I think he knew that he's bailed out of the jail right now, and I think he said axe the ground with Kate with everything that happened with Henry. So I think that was just him just crossing his T's and dotting his I's in case it did go to that level. I don't know why he just didn't put the fucking key in the shoe or in the sock or something like a normal person. To like fucking cut your forearm open and stitch back up is insane behavior. But that was wild to say the least.
Yeah, that was, man, the shock effect was achieved. That's for sure. That's for damn sure, in my opinion. But to wrap up this episode real quick, the episode also reveals that Joe actually called in about Harrison and Maddie for the death of Reagan. The teeth that belonged to Reagan were found, quote unquote, in Harrison's gym bag. We still don't know what happened to Reagan, like how Joe disposed of the body, right? I don't think they had the plan about the boat rental and she was going to drown out at sea or whatever, but like we actually don't know what happened to Reagan. But anyway, Harrison is thrown into jail. Maddie's also arrested for impersonating her sister and whatnot. That's how Kate comes back to London, right? She needed a bait. But Maddie is eventually released from jail thanks to the Lockwood lawyers, but she's pissed, right? She's been drinking. She's like, Teddy, she calls up Teddy, like, we need to do something about this. We need to do something about this now. Her and her drunk ass with tequila goes to light up the whole Mooney bookstore. Comes across Joe, who has now escaped the cage, right? Bloody face, what have you, but he can't get through the door, right? That goes downstairs. She won't let him out. And he's like, Kate's down here. What I failed to mention is that Kate comes back to the basement. They have a fight. He shoots her with the gun and she's wounded, but she's down there with him. Maddie's like, I don't believe you. Lights the whole bitch up, right? Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Bronte comes in. I don't know where Maddie went, but obviously she exited. Bronte comes in to find... Actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. I am so sorry, everyone. Bear with me. It's been a long day. Marcy, what Kate ends up doing to Joe, because she will in turn knock him out when he believes that like she's done taking care of because she's been shot. Talk us through what happened in what seems to be their final moments as Mooney's is going up in flames.
I think he also thinks it's his final moments and he feels comfortable enough to start talking about all that he's done and all that they've done. And oldest trick in the book, of course, she's recording him. And of course, this is going to be used against him. And even if Kate doesn't survive, like Joe will still go down. So I was just like, Joe, come on. Like, did you not expect her to be recording? Like, what is happening? And then also you have like cameras all over this place. Like, they're going to see you. Like, you're not thinking clearly at this point, Joe. And that's when I was like, man, like Kate is cooked. Like she is done for.
Figuratively and literally.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, well, it's been nice knowing you, Kate. At least you tried to do some good. But yeah, it was so gratifying to see the whole place go up in smoke. And that could have been a great ending. That could have been a fine ending, but we still had one episode left. So I knew that was not going to be the ending.
It's not. And Frank, we kind of talked about this earlier today about Bronte coming into the burning bookstore, going downstairs to try and see if anyone was there. She had no idea that Joe was there to begin with, right? But she does come across the injured Kate, who has now passed out due to the fire, the smoke, inhalation, what have you. She's also wounded, but she sent off the voice recording to Nadia, who's going to get it into the proper hands. What did you make of Bronte not having pulled out Kate from the fire, but only saved Joe?
I just took it as on brand with her trauma bonding and her seeing the good in Joe. That's what I took it as. It's just more. At this point, I'm just like mentally done with Bronte. I'm like, girl, if you died, this is all your fault. You had so many opportunities to like kill this motherfucker, leave him behind, save Kate. Like you know that he's a monster at this point. You try to like gloss over the fact that he's done all these awful things, and you had an opportunity to save Kate, pull Kate out of there too, and she didn't. And I'm like, God damn, is she that far gone? Is she that digmatized to like leave somebody who's a fucking like? She knows Henry is in the protection. She knows if Joe are gonna flee, what does that leave Henry? And like leaving Kate there is like you didn't give a fuck about her well-being, and you didn't give a fuck about Henry in turn, because you don't know what's gonna happen to Joe. Joe could go to prison for all you know. He still bailed out. He bailed out, so it's not guaranteed he's gonna be free. He's talking about running away with you, and it's like to leave that woman, that poor woman, in that fire in the basement. I thought was insane. And at that point, I kind of gave him on Bronte. I thought she was far gone off the reservation at that point.
So I will counter that by saying this is also on the heels of having that conversation with Marianne. And I think she had to make it appear that she didn't care about Kate to get Joe out of there for whatever reason, because like there was like this transformation. Like she kind of like, yes, she recognized that he was there, and he's like, you came back for me, and it's like, bitch, she didn't even know you were there. Like, what are you talking about? But I looked at that look of, oh God, what am I gonna do? Right? He can't die like this without me getting the closure that I needed of the reason I started this whole stalking, catfishing situation, right? She needed to know the truth about Beck, and she knew she had to get him out of there, because probably to her, Kate looked like she was already gone, right? She was already dead. She was wounded. She passed out, in the fire, what have you. But Joe at least was alive and talking, because then at the end of the episode, you start hearing Bronte's inner monologue. He proposes to her in that moment after they're out of Mooney's. And she starts saying things like, how could I ever be with you, or knowing what I know and what have you. But she's like, I saw you coming a mile away, but you'll never see me coming, or something like that. Something kind of clever and coy or whatever. But she puts on the ring, she kisses him. And then that's leading into what is the final episode of this series, simply entitled Finale. Marcy, please tell us your thoughts on this finale episode.
I was just happy to be done at that point. I binged the whole thing through on a day that I didn't have any work. So I was tired. It was the middle of the night. Lots of ups and downs. I didn't expect, just because of how like much Bronte's personality had like gone up and down, and we're like, are you trying to take him down, or are you like trying to get with him? Like what is happening with you? Overall, it was a little bit too long, to where it was like, okay, like now, like what are we doing now? But it was somewhat satisfying. Could have been a lot more satisfying again if Joe had maybe like gotten like more repercussions other than just going to jail and getting fan mail.
Frank, your overall thoughts on this finale episode?
Too long, bro. Too many dry spots. Too many dry spots. The long drive to the gas station, her fidgeting around getting snacks, her like running across that cop. Like it's one thing if like you revert back later on and you see that she was planting seeds throughout the whole episode of like talking to the cop and like, hey, we're going to this place, we're going to be at this cottage at this time, and he's on the run. Like, but it went nowhere. It was just a lot of like, I think you said fluff today, Brittany, is what you said. It was just a lot of like empty scenes that we didn't need. And I wish it would have been more. I wish it would show more of like what was going on back in New York. I wish it would show more what was going back with Henry. Because again, at this point, Henry has no parents right now. Like he's he's staying with his uncle. You know, he's staying with his uncle. Like there's nothing. Like it would have been nice to get like a Henry episode for once and to like see his thoughts, to see what he's going through. Fuck a monologue about Bronte. I want to see a monologue about like Henry. Like he's essentially going through the same type of trauma that Joe went through as a kid. You know, a little bit different, but still a trauma nonetheless. And it would have been cool to like put this kid in the forefront to like let him act his ass off and do what he does, because he's been good in the limited scenes that we've seen him in. But I just got a long prairie drive to the gas station, a long prairie drive to the cottage, useless writing, useless redacting of a fucking book that I don't give a fuck about. Season 1, like it just you wasted my time that you could have put towards other storylines, you know, in this episode. It would have been nice to see what Teddy's up to. Teddy has and Henry. It would have been nice to see what he's going through right now, because like again on a small in a lesser storyline, he's now the lead dog with Lockwood. It would have been nice to see what he got going on, because he has to axe the ground with Joe too. It just you have so many other facets that you could have explored in this finale, but you didn't, and that part kind of frustrated me.
So I'm going to kind of speed through like the lesser points of this episode. Frank and Marcy have already like kind of touched on it. Really, Kate, just kidding. Bronte and Joe are on the run after the fact that Kate's recorded confession is out there in the open, right? I will say, to Bronte's defense, quite literal defense, picking up the kitty cat self-defense knuckles was probably a smart move, you know, to stop at the gas station and, you know, just keep it on your person, right? You know, we love that. But the plan is to jump the border to Canada. I like the idea and the fact that we got to see the original Will Bettelheim, who we saw from season 2. He's the guy that Joe took his identity, kept him hostage for a very long time to do all this like hacker shit type stuff. So now lives in the Philippines, got a good life, helps out Joe whenever he can. One of the favors is obviously the passports, but then also to get in touch with Henry when he is online and gaming, which will come into play a little later in this episode. When Joe and Bronte arrive to like this vacation home, right, that they're going to break into, this is where things start going eventually sideways. There's a lot of fluff in between, just a lot of conversations, a lot of like weird, uncomfortable kind of like stares, in my personal opinion. But it's in this moment when the two seemingly are going to make love that Bronte, who has armed herself with a gun while on this road trip, because she's fantasized about how she's going to kill Joe. She doesn't know at what point she's going to corner him. She will point a gun at him in bed. And he's like, the fuck? Which I always love hearing the inner monologue of him saying like, fuck, you know, that kind of thing. It's really funny. But yes, she wants him to own up about what happened to Beck. She wants him to redact every word that he put into The Dark Face of Love, which is Beck's memoir, if you will. And that kind of thing, like I understood where they were going. They were coming from, because again, that was the whole reason that Bronte got involved with the group to take down Joe, right? It was to give justice to Beck, to give her voice back, what have you. But it was just like so dragged out, so completely unnecessary. And it was just like, oh my God, kill me now. Right. But the interesting part, Marcy and Frank, I want y'all's thoughts on this. When Will is able to connect Joe and Henry online, that conversation about monsters and Henry sharing his thoughts towards his dad about monsters. Tell us what you all thought about in that moment. Marcy.
Dude, like your dad is the monster, and hopefully you will not grow up to be the monster because of your trauma. But I hated how much throughout this season Joe kind of like was also gaslighting Henry and like saying like, I'm not leaving you, which is true. He wasn't leaving him willingly. but also you would rather like go and kill people rather than like keep a stable life at home with your kid. Like you can't get over that urge. But just so much gaslighting of Henry of like, hey, like whatever you hear, like that's not true, or like that didn't happen, or like whatever they're saying, like whatever they're saying is true, right? Like your dad is a murderer. Your mom love was crazy and also killed people. So I was happy when Henry like gave the adults the heads up of like, oh, hey, like I'm communicating with my dad, because I would have been so mad if Joe was able to get away and it was because like Henry like helped him inadvertently, because then like definitely setting him up to be just like his dad.
Frank, what are your thoughts about what would actually be the final moments between Henry and Joe?
It was great. It was deserving. I mean, I want to count on one point that Marcy made about Joe not leaving willingly and not letting Henry go willingly. I can make the argument that he has. I think every decision that he made selfishly, from killing Uncle Bob to trying to kill Reagan, killing Reagan eventually, cheating on his wife Kate, every decision that he made, he put at risk his freedom. And this is mind you, this is after getting a mulligan of getting his record clean out by Kate in the first fucking place to come back to New York. You would have thought, you know what, I have a second lease on life. I have my kid back thanks to Kate. We can play house. I have money beyond my wildest dreams. I have resources. I can live out my life as a writer. I can be Mr. and Mrs. to my wife. And I have my son by my side. And I can be the father that I want to be, that I never had in my life growing up. He had that opportunity. He got a clean slate. The 19 murders he committed prior to season 5, he was good. It was buried under a rug, put in the back in the closet. All the skeletons was protected by Kate. And with that being said, his greed, his ego, it got in the way. And like I can make the argument that he loves himself more and like feeding into his worst impulses than his own son. Because as a parent, what is the number one job as a parent? To protect your child, love your child, and put yourself in harm's way to make sure that child sees tomorrow.
Yeah.
And he did the opposite. He talked a good game like he normally does with everything in his life. But at the end of the day, he chose his son second every chance he got. He chose his son second when it came in Marjorie and Linda. He let the son, with the dads, with the couple in Marjorie and Linda. Mm-hmm. He came back and chose Bronte over his son. He chose murdering Reagan over his son. He chose killing Kate over his son. He chose this is what he does on brand, and then it just part of like not taking accountability. And when Henry said, when you told me there was no monsters in my room, you are the monster.
You lied. You are the monster.
Yeah, you're the monster, Dad. Like you are the monster. What did you do to Mom? Like for a 6-year-old kid to know what you did, what you tried to do to his own mother or the woman that he calls Mom, that's jarring. For a child to sit there and pretty much digest what you tried to do to kill his mom, and to sit here and act like you didn't try to do that, and to have the resolution and like the declaration to say, "Damn, Pops, you ain't shit, bro. Like you really ain't shit. Like you are what the world says you are, and like I don't want anything to do with you." And he didn't say out of anger. He said out of shame and sadness. The tear coming down his eye just shows you like, damn, man, I love you so much, but it's like you chose all these things over me. Knowing my childhood, you put me in this predicament. You put me in this like predicament of going from home to home before the age of 3. Like this is all on you. And for you to act like you love me, you never loved me. You love the idea of like me as a son. You love the idea of being a father, but you never acted out and like put boots to ground of doing the day-to-day work of being a parent. And to me, that was more satisfying than him going to prison, of his son seeing him for the man that he is. For me, was more satisfying. Because let's say if the writers say, you know what, Joe gets away scot-free, he kills Bronte, he goes to Canada, he gets passports. To live with the shame that your son sees you as a monster, that's a life sentence in itself.
Bars.
Yes.
Bars right there. My goodness. Damn. Yeah. And then for that scene to play out the way that it did, and Joe to react, Penn Badgley, motherfucking Penn Badgley, put on an acting clinic of probably one of the best performances I've ever seen from any actor. And to echo what Love said in her dying moments, is that Henry will know who you are. And that came into fruition with Henry saying to his father, you are a monster. And Joe just completely breaks down, completely loses it, all while Bronte is still pointing a gun at him, right? And he's like, it's me. I'm the problem. I'm unlovable, and just freaks out. He's like, why am I like this? You know, I mean, if y'all haven't watched any of You, I recommend that you need to watch this scene of Penn, because in this season alone, he had some great like freak out moments. And this in turn will be channeled to try to take down Bronte, to kill her. They tackle. He gets hold of the gun, shoots her in the gut, if you will. She runs out of the house. It's this, cat and mouse sort of situation of trying to get away. Bronte is trying to call 911, but the screen is broken, so she's not really successful until it finally goes through. Eventually, cops are trying to survey the area. It's dark, it's rainy, it's typical. And Joe is coming at her with quite impressive speed, I might add, right? I was also, this is just a side thing, but I'm a stickler for continuity. I was also trying to see if Joe still had his toes from season 3, because remember, he did chop off like a couple of his toes to make it look legit that like Love killed him, baked his toes into a pie or some shit like that, but never actually went back to see. But I will say the physical intensity between these two fighting, they are launched into the water, where Joe will strangle Bronte to show her, let me show you how I killed Beck, right? That finally comes into play, and it looks like she drowned. It looks like she drowned. But Marcy, this isn't the end of Bronte. No, this is not. She will encounter Joe as police are starting to close in on the area. Tell us what happens.
That's when this episode definitely felt like a Lifetime movie, where it's like, obviously, she didn't die. He didn't really strangle her. And that's some real sadistic shit too, to be like, let me show you how I killed Beck. But he got her, he shot her, and he shot her kind of in the same place that he shot Kate. So I'm like, okay, like, interesting that they made that choice to have them both be injured at the same place. But if that's where she was aiming, like, she must have like taken like some shooting classes, because she got him in the groin. I didn't notice it at this point, because again, I was watching this, it was the middle of the night, I wasn't paying attention, I knew it was almost over until I rewatched that episode the next day. When I rewatched it the next day, and they're kind of going over the last moments of the show where they're making fun of him online because he got shot in the back. So that's very fitting for Joe. And finally, Bronte, you've redeemed yourself, because all season long we were like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Frank, I'm sure you felt some type of way when you noticed that Bronte shot Joe in the nether regions. Was it
Oh,
fitting?
oh yeah, it was very fitting. It's I caught it the first time. I was eating lunch in my car and I was watching on my phone, and when I saw the pinpoint Hawkeye accuracy of that bullet, I crossed my legs in the car, hitting my knee on the steering wheel and like hitting my funny bone and cursing out loud. But it was really was painful. That was painful to watch. But it's funny because like in like when you watch season 1 and he has sex with Beck for the first time, it was very unfulfilling and it was just not good. And he becomes like this master, passionate lover boy over the next 4 seasons of like attracting women with his sex appeal and like his passionate lovemaking. And to have that taken away from him along with his freedom was very fitting, to say the least. But no, it made me cringe for a second. I was like, God damn, I don't know if that was by design. I don't know if she purposely, but that is deadly accuracy.
Yeah, and
I'm sure
leading up,
sitting down now.
probably a couple of notes on that whole thing. Leading up to that moment of her pulling the trigger, Joe is still endlessly gaslighting, of course, saying, you know, I love you more than you love yourself. You know, you need me, this and that, what have you. And Bronte finally says and delivers probably my favorite line from her this entire season. And it was, no, I'm done. I am done, Joe. And I have been asking myself over and over, why? And I finally see it. I see it clearly now. The fantasy of a man like you is how we cope with the reality of a man like you. And I think that was one of like the strongest writing pieces of this season. And it's very true. We've talked about this already, so I'm not going to go in depth about it, but this trope of coming across the bad guy and thinking you would be the one to fix him, because she does claim that in Filet Adieu. I failed to mention that in Filet Adieu, they decide to smash in the cage because why not? It's only appropriate. They've overcome their demons and she's, quote, fixed him. But I think that is such an incredible line about, we fantasize about men like you to deal with the reality of men like you. And it's such a double meaning, but it's such a great perspective. And ultimately, yes, the police come. Joe did kill one of the policemen who arrived. So he's obviously going to go down for that. But I also want to point out too, that as everything has been playing out, that people are weighing in on what's happened in Joe's life. Obviously that hashtag Joe Goldberg went viral. Cardi B had a couple of moments here in this show. She's a big fan of Penn Badgley, as well as this show, You. She had 2 tweets that appeared on the show. One about basically him being a 10. And so when he shot, tried, found guilty, being thrown in prison, she said he was a 10, but now a 2 ... inches. Which I thought was so great. So absolutely great. But yes, this finale episode concludes with the fact that Joe was tried. The evidence was, undeniable. We got the closures for all the other characters. Maddie and Harrison are together. She's pregnant with twins. They're living happily ever after, if you will. Kate survived the fire, right? She wears her scars like a badge of honor, right? She has Henry. They have a great relationship. Hopefully Henry will choose to be a better person than what he was born into, right? Both his parents, unfortunately, chose to be killers, and hopefully he will choose different. Teddy is now CEO of Lockwood Corporation and made the corporation 100% non-profit, which is wonderful. We love that for him. He's living his best life with his son and his partner. And Nadia also gets a happy ending as well. She will go back to writing. She teaches, goes to the prison to try to help women deal with their trauma, what have you. And going back to Kate real quick, she goes back to her first love, which is art, helps bring attention to the one and only Marianne Bellamy, who is an artist and has one of her large canvases hanging in her apartment, which I love. I love women supporting women in this fashion. It's beautiful. It's great. Like, they all have the common story of one Joe Goldberg, but it did not break them. It did not make them hate one another. It brought them together to take him down. And I think that's a beautiful ending for their stories. Joe, however, Frank, tell us about Joe and where he is. Also, before we get to that, I do want to pose this question. Why didn't Joe out Kate during the trials? Because remember, he said, you're complicit. If I go down, you go down. Why didn't that happen? Frank, I'm going to go to you first about that.
I think it was to the point where it's like he said, she said at this point. I think everything that Joe had, every advantage or resource he had was under the Lockwood and the Lockwood Resources brain trust. And again, he had no text messages to connect him to Kate with Joe's murder. Not Joe. Pop, Uncle. What's the guy? Uncle. What's the guy's name? The guy that Kate's uncle. Bob. Yeah. So there was no documentation of like Kate giving the go ahead to Joe about killing Uncle Bob. So that would have been like he said, she said. And I think with the court of public opinion and like no jury was gonna like what Kate went through. I don't think any jury would have like even like wasted their time with trying to put Kate in prison after what Joe put all those women through, dead and alive, what they put her through. And then with the kids getting cancer and like Kate causing that and back in Europe again, like you had people looking into that. You had Ray and Uncle Bob looking into that, but once they died, it kind of went away. Like we never found out who the whistleblower was. We never found out like who was looking into it. It kind of just went away. So like I felt like Joe didn't have a leg to stand on as far as like going back at Kate, especially with everything that was on his hands and just how he was viewed at that point. Like this man killed somebody on camera, on social media. He was found on Love's murder. He was found on Beck's murder. He had too much against him. I don't think any jury in America would have like found any time, and not just any jury. I don't think any defense attorney will want to like try to like take that on to like try to like defend Joe and like get back at Kate, especially after he tried to kill Kate and leave her for dead under the bookstore in that basement. Again, to go back to Kate, I wish they would have shown how she got out of there, because like the last thing we saw was Bronte stumbling out of the basement with Joe and Kate unconscious, gunshot wound to the belly, blunt force trauma to the head with a foreign object, and knocked out cold from smoke inhalation. I wish they would have shown something or somebody saving her to like connect the dots, because I don't know about y'all. I was surprised that she was alive and that she wasn't burnt to a crisp. You know what I'm saying? So I wish they would have spent more time on that, or at least just showing like a quick backstory of like maybe Bronte coming back to pull her out of there and like pull her to safety after she's secured Joe, something to like. And then like they never showed that Nadia got the text message from Kate, like you know, because one thing we found out in the 5 seasons of this show, phone reception is bad down there in that basement. We've seen victims trying to text people. We've seen victims in that trying to get to people, trying to call, trying to get bars.
Oh my God, you're right.
So like when I saw her send that text to Nadia, I kept saying to myself, did it go through? Because every time somebody's down there in that basement, phones, like reception's never good down there. So it was just it was just a lot of plot holes for me in that.
You are absolutely right. I had not considered that at all. And Marcy, I was going to get your thoughts real quick on why Joe didn't go after Kate, but I'm going to throw in a sweetener. Do you think Kate and her money would have anything to do with making sure she was going to get away with this scot-free?
Oh, absolutely. Like, Joe is a broke bitch now. Like, she took all his money that he thought was saved from her, but he is broke. He has no money. He has no penis anymore. Like, he has nothing anymore. So yeah, even if he had tried to come after her, like, her money and her lawyers would get her off.
Fair. Fair. Real quick too, I want to add Bronte, with her little monologue, she's telling us, the audience, how everything has transpired since Joe's been thrown in jail. She is republishing Beck's book, the redacted version, and it's selling better than ever. Okay, good for you. It still for me was unnecessary to like make that like kind of a thing in the end, but it is what it is. Now, Joe. Let's talk about our boy Joe, right? This man behind me. Love him. Hi. He life in prison without parole, obviously. What I was kind of hoping to see in the end is that he was in a jail cell. That's a tough word to say. Next to Dr. Nikki. But I did realize, of course, that Dr. Nikki was exonerated for, the crimes. Obviously, he did not commit. So therefore, he wouldn't be there. But I would have liked to have seen, that kind of cameo of Dr. Nikki, like saying his piece. You know how like we saw all those stitches for TikTok with people that we've seen in the past that, came out to talk about Joe. I was hoping to see maybe Jenna Ortega talk about how her friend Hendy, Crystalia's character had, been murdered, whatever, gone missing, what happened to her sister. But Jenna Ortega is actually too big to come back to Netflix or this show because she's thriving. She's living her best life. Good for her. But I was hoping to see some additional cameos. But Joe, our boy Joe, all alone in a cell, shaved head, which totally like killed me personally. But I wanted to point out that the book that he's reading, which is called The Executioner's Song, it's a novel, it's a nonfiction by Norman Mailer. And the interesting thing about this book is that it tells the story of a convicted murderer who became the first person executed in the United States after the Supreme Court lifted its moratorium on the death penalty. But he insisted on being he insisted on facing the death penalty and being executed, which, let's think about Joe pleading to Bronte in the end, kill me. I can't be alone. I can't. Like, he needs a purpose. He needs to do the things that he does. And he was insisting on her killing him. I'm not sure if either one of y'all have read the book, let alone know the summary synopsis of what it's about. But after doing that little bit of research, I thought that was really interesting to throw that bit in there. Of course, he would be reading books because that's what Joe does, right? That he has a love for books. But it's the letter that he gets from a fan that is the interesting thing. Marcy, I'm going to go to you first because you're rolling your eyes and it's like you're disgusted by this whole thing. Tell us what that letter was and your thoughts on it.
I mean, and we hear this happening in real life where inmates get love letters, more than love letters, graphic erotic letters from fans, right? From people who think that they are sexy and hot and I can fix him. Right? Like, he's getting letters where women are saying, like, I would like for you to fuck me. Just all this kind of fan mail, which is why I'm like, what is wrong with us sometimes? Because it's like these men are in here because they have murdered people. We don't need to be writing them love letters. Charles Manson, people didn't need to be like killing for him or writing him love letters. Ted Bundy, all of these terrible, terrible men. No, we don't need to be getting married to them after they've been incarcerated. But I like that the show pointed it out because that's something like that happens in real life. We have everybody, and this is a different kind of case because this isn't a serial killer, but everybody thirsting over Luigi. And it's like, who has more fan mail? Is it Luigi or is it Joe Goldberg? Like, what is happening?
Frank, I'm going to read out some of the final quotes from Joe while reading this letter from a fan. He says, "Why am I in a cage when all these crazies write me all the depraved things they want me to do to them? Maybe we have a problem as a society. Maybe we should fix what is broken in us. Maybe the problem isn't me. Maybe it's you." What are your thoughts on Joe's final words for the series? is he gaslighting us, or is he speaking truth?
That white nigga passing the buck in his final moments, dog. I'm so tired of this motherfucker, bro. I was hoping to get him say something to the effect of, you know what, man, maybe this is on me. You know, maybe I ain't shit. Maybe this is the chicken's coming home to roost finally. Maybe all the bad shit that I've done, all the people that I've murdered, all the families I've left disheartened, maybe I deserve this. To sit there and to sit his bald-headed white ass in that prison bed to say, no, it was society that made me this way. Nigga, you 40, bro. Like, what like, when are we gonna like take accountability for oneself? You're not 6. You're not Henry, bro. Like, you're not a child. You have plenty of time, plenty of opportunities in your. I'm assuming he's at least 40 over your 40 years of life to like better yourself and like right your wrongs. You went to therapy in season 4, like season 3. Like you've done the work and just didn't learn your lesson. Like, I don't want to hear this is society's fault, motherfucker. This is your fault. This is your bad. When are you gonna be a man and take accountability for once? Bro, like, you murdered 20 something people. Like, it's all their fault? Like this, like, what are we doing? What are we doing, bro? Like, you are in prison. You wasn't wrongfully accused, bro. You wasn't one of the 15 people that you wrongfully accused and put in prison. You did that shit, bro. You did that shit. At least just own up to it. No, nobody's around to hear you. It's okay to like say, you know what, man, this is on me, bro. I did that shit, dog. I deserve to be here. Who are you gaslighting? Nobody's in prison with you. Your prison bitch ain't next to you. It's just you. This is your one chance to tell the camera that you fucked up, that you did this shit, and like you're blaming the rest of the world for what you've become. You got a mulligan, dog. Your second wife gave you a mulligan to come clean, and you still was fucking up murdering people. What are we doing?
My guess is that he was talking to the writer of that letter, right? Like, the society being, what's the problem? Like, obviously, this is evidence of what people want him to do to them. And he's like, hey, listen, it's because society wants this that I'm going to give them what they want, right? Yeah, this is total textbook narcissist who can't accept anything for what it is, can't take responsibility for anything. Marcy, do you have any final thoughts on that letter and the end of Joe?
I'm glad it's over. Like I said, satisfying ending. He did get what was coming to him, which is good. But something I love is that Joe's biggest hater is Penn Badgley. I love that he hates Joe so much, which is like great because he speaks out so much about like we should not be romanticizing characters like Joe. And like, if you are attracted to Joe, that is on you. Like, you need to do the work to figure out, why are you attracted to this murderer? You're not supposed to be attracted. No, you're not supposed to be in love with him. What is wrong with you? So I love that he takes that responsibility again to point that out and be like, no, ladies, this is not the man you're supposed to be in love with. This is a bad person. Do not fall in love with these types of men. So I love that Joe's biggest hater is Penn.
Frank, any final thoughts on this episode or the whole season and series of Netflix U?
Man, like Marcy, man, I'm just finally glad to have closure. It's one of those things where I wasn't watching. The show wasn't bad. It wasn't a bad season. It could have been better. I feel like the writing kind of suffered in time. I thought there was a lot of dry spots. But I'm just glad to finally have closure. I can go to bed knowing that Joe Goldberg's in jail and he's never getting out. I can find solace in that. But I just wish there was more well-rounded writing for the characters at play towards the last episodes of the season. I thought Bronte got way too much screen time in my liking, way too much. But for somebody who got interjected into the story so late in the game, to dominate episode 9 and 10 the way she did, I thought was kind of like, you did an injustice to like other characters I feel like could have, like Nadia. Like I thought Nadia should get more screen time. Henry, Teddy. Like these are people I feel like who were deeply affected by Joe one way or the other. I felt like should have got more screen time in the last couple episodes. But I'm glad it's put to bed. I can now rest. Like Tony Stark, now I can rest. It's like I can move on with my life. So no, that's pretty much it.
I agree. My final thoughts is that I'm glad it wasn't death. It would have been way too easy for Joe just to have died and gotten away with everything. There'd be no repercussions for his actions, and I think the world is better for it. Although I still love him, as twisted as that may be. It is what it is. But I was a late bloomer to this series. It's been a fun watch. It's something that I probably would rewatch again personally, but maybe not so much this last season. Last season was a lot. Also, personally, I didn't care for all the Gen Zer talk. I'm not with it. I'm a millennial and I'm happy to be a millennial. I can't deal with this new generation and then what's going to come afterwards with alpha. So it is what it is. But overall, I did enjoy the series. Funny enough, this final episode only got like a 5.7 out of 10 on IMDb. And I would probably be okay with saying it's deserved. It's deserved. It's deserved. It wasn't a strong ending other than Joe, being thrown into jail for life. So, but that wraps up part 2 of our review on Netflix You. Thank you so much to everyone who joined us in today's live chat. M Moves, King B. Johnson, Amber of Olive Amber's Wands. We appreciate y'all being here. This was a long pod. Thanks so much to everyone who stuck around with us. If you're watching the replay, y'all are the MVP. Please be sure to subscribe, hit that like button, hit that notification bell. That way you know the next time we go live, which will be soon. We are talking about The Handmaid's Tale as well as The Last of Us. So be sure to join us for those lives. Follow our social media. Links are in the description box down below. And check out our audio podcasts available on Apple and Spotify. Excuse me. I can talk, I swear. I'm just tired. So for Marcy, Frank, I'm Brittany. We are the Watchers in the Basement. And goodbye, you.